Hello everyone, this is L5 and welcome to the Cobra Master tutorial video. And today's tutorial I'm looking at the 2008 release by Hasbro of the movie Iron Man action figure review. And today's action figure review I'm looking at the concept series of the Repulsor red prototype Iron Man figure. Now I got this straight from my girlfriend who bought this figure for me as a gift. Now, surprisingly enough, I also found out that this figure is still available in some of the toy shops in my area, being sold for a retail pricing of 49 ringgit and 90 cents, which is still surprisingly to know that these figures are still available. Now, let's take a look at the top section of the packaging itself. You can see that the Iron Man logo there. I really don't like how they apply the colors for the Iron Man logo, because for the Iron Man himself, the armor is bright red and gold. This is dark red with gold linings. I really don't like how they do that kind of colors, but I really like how they design the packaging. As you can see, the two letter ends there at the side of the packaging itself. There's two letters pop out a little bit from the side of the packaging. I really like how they did this packaging style. Also, the artwork of Iron Man there is really well done, and you can see one side of the arm also popped out from the side of the packaging, also a little bit from the head itself. Top section of the packaging itself, you can see the background there. Well, he's flying above in the skies. Behind him will be the city itself. They're all in red with yellow lighting, very nicely done. Bottom section here, you got a nicer artwork of the Iron Man artwork, painted in red and a bit of silver and grey. However, if you compare to the figure itself, the silver paint job is mostly a little bit of pink. The face, the upper bicep, the arc reactor, one side of the thigh. The only silver will be in the left thigh. Behind the figure, you notice that the whole circular silver, that is the arc reactor, is all in silver. Even that is in silver, but this is in a little bit pink, so it's kind of funny to look at that way. The packaging is also equipped with the detachable Repulsive Blaster with the missile itself, which is also packaged in a lot of those first movie Iron Man figures, including the new Iron Man Armored Avenger 6-inch figures as well. Some of the figures also packed in with the same old missile launcher. Funnily enough, you notice the sticker for the limited edition. The figure is not really limited edition, and most of the figures for the first Iron Man movie figures, most of the mold here is the same molds with the rest of the dozen of the other figures with a different paint job. The back of the packaging itself, smaller write-up on what Tony Stark is experiencing, stating, driven to heroism by personal tragedy, billionaire industrialist Tony Stark resolves to change the world, becoming the Invisible Iron Man. Stated here, this armor suit is the peak of human technological achievement. It renders the wearer extraordinarily strong and resistant to damage even from tank shells and rockets. Easily a match for an entire armored division, it is potentially the most powerful weapon system ever devised, a mighty melding of super science and the genius intellect of his wearer, Tony Stark. Here you got a smaller image on where to place the missile launcher onto the figure itself and where to push the button. You got a nicer image of the figure itself launching the missile itself. Bottom section here is the rest of the lineup. You got the Ironmonger there. This version does not have the removable cockpit. You have the Iron Man stealth operation suit that looks like War Machine, which uses the same body mold as this figure itself as well. And here we have another Ironmonger, this time with a removable cockpit. This is one of the figures that I really wanted to find. So, without further ado, let's open up this packaging so we can molest the figure. Be right back. And we're back after removing the figure and the rest of the stuff out from packaging. Now let's take a look at the figure's accessories. It comes with a Repulsive Blast missile, and you can see that this entire thing is made of a sort of semi-translucent plastic material. When I say semi, because, well, you can see a little bit of your shape when you put it behind your fingers and everything, but it's a bit too thick to see it clearly. And the entire thing has a bit of color, not painted, that's the plastic color. Top section here until this section here is a bit of green, and the top tip of the missile itself is a bit blue. And speaking of the tip, this is the only detailed stuff they put onto the missile. The entire thing here is just a stick with a pig. Now the entire tip of the missile itself, there's a bit of detailed stuff, just, well, wavy lines and everything else. To be honest, it looks like a giant cotton bud where you clean your ears and take out the earwax. Yeah, it does look like that. Nothing special. Now let's take a look at the Repulsive Blaster. Now this entire thing is painted very nicely done with the shininess. I like anything that's shiny, but it's not perfect done with the paint job. The entire red is a bit too dark compared to the back of the packaging color. It looks more like raspberry red rather than red, and the silver paint job painted towards the entire barrel is alright, but one side here is a bit pink. So does the technical doodads there. One side is silver, the other side is pink. Now the bottom section of the missile launcher here, you got a clip on where you can clip onto the figure's hand. If you put it onto the wrist, it's a bit loose. You have to push it all the way up a little bit. So you got nice little details there, but nothing to shout about. This is the same kind of missile launcher that's been packed with dozens of the Iron Man figures from the first movie Iron Man figures. So there's not a lot of details there. And they didn't even properly snap this two pieces, because it's two pieces all the way in. As you can see, there's a bit of gap there. You can see to the other side as well. On the top section of the missile launcher, there's a button, so when you load the missile like so, you push it all the way in until you hear a click, and this thing pops up, and then when you press the button, it fires. And not really quite hard as well. The spring is not that strong. Now let's take a look at the figure's paint job. The figure's paint job is primarily only raspberry red and pinkish silver with a bit of blue because of the eyes. Now the red is rather shiny, as you can see. I really like it shiny, but the red is also not very consistent in the paint job. Some parts are darker, some parts are lighter, some parts are red. Torso here is nicely done, but the lower torso and the rest of the body itself is raspberry red. Lower arms here, however, you try to think that the raspberry red mix in with the silver, and that's the kind of effect you're gonna get. It's a bit lighter in color. Even the arc reactor and the upper bicep, thighs, face, it's not really well done because it looks very pinkish. Upper bicep as well, you can see that it's not really well done. Side of the elbows as well, very sloppy paint job, very sloppy indeed. The eyes there, at the edges of the eyes are painted in blue, so there's a bit of white pupils there, but the problem is the pupils are also a bit pinkish. The arc reactor is pink. The thighs on one side is pink. This section here is all silver, however, this section here, the outer section here, is a bit pink. Back portion of the figure, the back here, is nicely painted with the silver paint job, but you can see the shoulder pad just popped off, which I'm going to explain later. You can see the silver paint job smudged onto the figure itself. Not really well done. This is okay with the paint job. Back of the upper bicep here, a bit of silver, a bit of pink, a bit of silver, pink, and pink. Not a lot of details they place onto the figure itself, because for instance, the bottom of the boots, that's where the jet boots are, it's not painted at all. So does the repulsor palm. It's not even painted at all. I really wish they put a little bit detailed paint job on the figure, but then again they can mess up with the silver paint job, and I'm not gonna expect too much of it. Now let's take a look at the figure sculpt. You'll notice that the shoulder pads is a separate piece. Of course, is also very loose for this shoulder pad. Of course, the other one is very tightly secured, but this one, the moment you touch it, the moment you move the arms, it will pop off from the shoulders itself. So that's not really well done. A little bit of hot water trick can actually help it when you try to soften up the plastic and you try to squeeze it a little bit, so it will tighten up the joint a little bit when you place it into the shoulders there. Now the sculpt of the figure itself is nothing special. It's been reused so many times for the first Iron Man movie action figures. It's been used so many times. The same mold has been used for the stealth operations suit. There's also the Captain America concept armor. They use the same mold as well, where they add in the shield as an accessory. This figure's body has been reused so many times that I don't find it really well interesting. Granted, it's rather well detailed figure. I really like it. I just don't like the hands. Now, one side of the hand, it looks like he's, well, has a trigger finger, but of course the rest of the fingers are all closed in so tightly. I really wish that this hand is actually an enclosed fist, rather than, I don't know, scratching himself or something, or thinking to himself out loud or something. The other side of the hand is open up, but the joint there, because it's a hinge joint, and I cannot pivot the hand outwards or inwards because the joint is frozen. Worst things worse is that the peg is so weak that if I try to do anything, it will break, and you can see that it's a bit, well, bent on one side for the wrist there. Now, the details on the entire sculpt is nicely done with the overlaying armor parts. Very nicely done. Very nicely detailed, especially on the back here. I really love the details they put on the back of the figure. The spine, the neck, the entire helmet is also very nicely done with the details. The legs is alright, but I just love the entire body itself. The body is very, very nicely done. I really don't like the hands, especially on the fingers. The fingers are a bit too thin for, well, for the entire Iron Man figure, because it's supposed to be a man in a suit, but when you look at the hands, it looks so thin that it's like he's not wearing any, well, armored glove rather than a normal glove at all. Bottom section of the boots is also nicely detailed stuff. Now let's take a look at the figure's articulation. The head here cannot pivot downwards, but can pivot up, side to side, and turn 360 degrees. Torso here can pivot a little bit forward, all the way back, and turn 360 degrees. Now I'm going to remove the shoulder pad because the moment I turn it, it's just going to pop off. Shoulders here can turn 360 degrees, and raise the arms this far without the shoulder pads, of course. And with the shoulder pad, you can lift the arms this far. Double jointed elbow that bend this far, and wrist joint here can turn 360 degrees, go all the way in and a little bit out. Now the hip joint here is on a ball joint, so the pegs are aligned this way, all the way straight. So if you want to turn the entire legs and to move forward, you have to move the entire ball joint like so to move forward like that, and this is as far as you can bend, or to the sides like so. Screw a tie that turns 360 degrees, very nicely done. And the shoulder pad that's popped off quite easily too. Double jointed knee that bend this far, and ankle joint that can pivot a little bit downwards, upwards, and turn 360 degrees. Now overall the figure is alright. I just don't like the sloppy paint job. I really don't like the really loose shoulder pads, but that can be easily fixed. The paint job, you can do a little bit touch up with the silver paint job, but this section here, the left hand, the peg is a bit weak, so it's gonna break sooner or later, so I don't dare to touch it. Other than that, the accessories is nothing that simple. It's the same missile launcher being packed with the rest of the Iron Man figures, but the figures details on the body is really nice. Not so much on the arms, the lower arms and the lower legs. The body is very nicely done. I really love this, and the paint job is shiny, granted, but very inconsistent with the red. So if I'm gonna give a rating on this figure, I would say I actually like this figure, but not really that great, so I'm just gonna give it a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 for the Repulsor red prototype Iron Man figure. Yes. So I thank you all for watching. This is Lucy05, and I'm signing off.